Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binodesha yarbitzeni, almei menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi shovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begei tzalmave lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha mishantecha hema yanachamuni, tarol lefanai shulchan neged sorarai dishanta v'shemen roshi kosir revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yurdafuni kol yemei chayai, v'shabti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. Began our service reciting Psalm 23 in the Hebrew. Please join me in reciting Psalm 23 in the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We gather here this morning to celebrate the life of our beloved Lois Shepard. We remember a loving daughter, a loving sister, a loving wife, a loving mother, a loving grandmother, a loving aunt, and a loving friend. L'kol zaman ve'et l'kol chevetz tachat hashamayim. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for planting and a time for reaping, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for embracing, a time for refraining, a time for laughing, a time for weeping, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing, a time for dying, a time for seeking, a time for losing. In our Jewish tradition, every Friday night, husband and children and grandchildren traditionally sing a biblical passage praising their wife, their mother, and grandmother, called Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. If you knew Lois, you would certainly agree that she was a woman of valor, of strength. And I'll read that passage. Eshet Chayil miyimsa v'rachot mipne michra, batak bale bala v'shala lo yakser. What a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad all the days of her life. She opens up her hand to the needy. She extends her hand to the poor. She is clothed with strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is guided by kindness. She oversees the activities of her household. She never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her, saying, "Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all." Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a God-fearing woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand, and wherever people gather, her deeds shall speak her praise. Every single year we read our Torah, and we rejoice at its end, even though the final section details the death of our leader, Moses. Upon its completion, we are required to joyously return to the beginning and start to read the Torah from its opening. Judaism teaches that our lives are like a book. Our actions and words are recorded. This past week, Lois's book was finished. Though it was expected and perhaps even a relief, it's still very difficult to grasp that she is gone. Lois was so strong, so full of life and love, living with vitality, a true zest for life. But we also know that she was ready. This was a long goodbye, an opportunity for so many to gather at her home and then at Montefiore, a gift to be able to say goodbye. And we know that she goes home, rejoining her beloved Bernie, her true love, and her beloved son Michael. The rabbis imagine Moses crying while writing the final chapters of the Torah, telling of his own death. And so it is for us today. Though Lois's book is sealed with our tears, we must celebrate, for we have the opportunity to share her story from the beginning, to celebrate her life, the life that she lived through incredible loss. She told me that she had a wonderful life and she was ready to go home. Lois has departed from this world with a good name. She is now at peace, leaving behind many in mourning, her beloved son Neil, her two daughters in love, Star and Janet, the diamonds in her crown, Sean, Morgan, and her husband Bobby, Ryan, and Schaefer, and so many more adoring nieces and nephews, great-nieces and great-nephews, and friends. Lois now joins her parents, Mary and Nathan Bartell, her sisters, Sarah and Frances, the love of her life for more than 50 years, Bernie, her son, Michael. She joins them all in their eternal home in heaven. Her son, Neil, now has a special tribute for his mom.
Thank you all for coming. My mother was a phenomenal, caring, considerate, strong, self-confident, secure woman whose heart and mind was so strong it kept her alive. Mary and Nathan Bartell had 3 daughters, as Rabbi has indicated, Sarah, Frances, and Lois. My mother, Lois Ruth Shepard, was born May 15, 1930. She married the love of her life, Bernard. My dad, on July 26, 1953. They were married 56 years. They had 2 children, my brother, Michael, who passed away on April 26, 2001, and myself. Mother, like her sisters, were strong and stubborn, confident women who knew what they wanted and believed in family. My mother was focused, very focused. She believed that family came first. She loved playing cards, mahjong with her friends. She loved going to dinner and laughing with her family and friends. Lois was vivacious and resilient. Mom didn't judge. She accepted you for who you were. After my dad passed, my mom would run from day to night, not liking to go home to an empty house. The worst time was at night. Now, my mom loved her incredible family and friends. Grandchildren she adored. Sean, Morgan, Ryan, Schaefer. She was very proud of all 4. Some of you treated my mother, and I've heard, as a second mom. You have no idea how touched she was to hear that. She loved her nieces and nephews. From coast to coast, and everyone in between. But my mom had a special bond with her sister's children, Dr. Leslie and Betty Greenberg, Joel and Jan Greenberg, Stan and Marie Greenberg, and Miss Sandra Friedman. My parents were lucky people. They were highly blessed with great friends. Everything they shared, from bowling, boating, entertaining, traveling, parties. My mom loved my dad, and my dad loved my mom. From death do us part, a wedding vow that lasted their lives. Now my mom joins her husband, her son, and her sisters. Something she impatiently waited for. I know she's content now. I miss you, but I'm at peace with this. We had so much time to prepare and so many conversations. I am so proud to be your son. Life's a vicious circle. We live to die. If I've learned anything, life requires sacrifice. We have our memories, we have our stories to tell, and our pictures to share and remember. Mom, you'll always be remembered. I love you.
Strong, determined, independent, and opinionated. Lois was a force of nature, a pragmatist, a true Taurus, a nurturing and loving grandmother that you always sought out for advice and counsel because you knew she wouldn't hold back, that she was always right. She'd tell you what you needed to hear. Generous to a fault, she loved giving you something from her closet. Lois drove fast. She made her own parking spots at B'nai Yeshurun right in the front. She never used a turn signal. Lois was always busy, a doer, a night owl, loving those classic movies. She had a deep respect for everyone, always open and accepting. She believed in the power of forgiveness. She loved each and every one of you. Her family kept growing, the circle getting larger. She was most proud of her grandchildren and children, always kvelling. Lois made an appointment with me during this winter. I didn't know what it was for, but she walked in and told me about her diagnosis and wanted to share with me her story so I could share it with all of you today. She didn't seek my pity. She kept repeating throughout our conversation these words, "I am so blessed." Lois summed herself up with this line, quote, "I am not an angel. I never professed to be one. I want to be remembered as a good and loyal friend, blessed with the best family. I miss Bernie terribly. I miss my son. I visit the cemetery weekly. I talk with them. I dream about them, even smell them, and I'm ready to be with them." Lois graduated from Glenville High School and attended Fenn Business College. She worked at Mount Sinai Hospital bookkeeping for Dr. Sid Katz in anesthesiology, then working for the Navy's personnel department with Maury Burke. It was then that she and Bernie began their love affair. Let me share how Lois told me the story of how they came to be this amazing couple that shared more than 50 years together. These are Lois's words. "I knew Bernie a long time. He was a drummer playing at the Palace Pit. He was older than me. I'd go down to the Palace and sit in the front row. He was good. He played for Lou Walters in the Latin Quarter in New York. I always liked Bernie no matter who I was dating. I always went back to him. The only problem was Bernie didn't know me. I'd go to his jam sessions with my girlfriends. At the age of 21, I went to a dance at Park Synagogue and walked right up to him and introduced myself. We danced together all night, but Bernie went home with a different girl. However, I did learn that Bernie lived only 4 blocks away from me on Lakeview. One day, coming home from working downtown, Bernie got on my bus. I dropped a coin in front of me. Bernie looked up, and he said hi. We both got off at the same stop and started talking. I told him I was going to New York on a trip. He asked me to buy movie film for him from Macy's, and he gave me some money. During my trip, I intentionally bought the wrong type of film. When I gave it to him, we continued talking. He took me out for a ride, and we started dating. The only problem was that I was dating another guy at the time. Bernie turned to me and said, "We are going unconditionally steady from now on." Not soon later, we were standing next to the stove at my place, and Bernie proposed to me, later giving me my ring in the parking lot at Genta's in Cedar Center. After their marriage, they took a 7-week honeymoon driving to the West Coast. Lois told me she probably got pregnant in Vegas. When they got home, they lived with Lois's mother, Mary, for 7 months on Lakeview, and while they built their 2-bedroom bungalow on Gilbert in Mayfield. Neil was born 9 months and 10 days after the wedding ceremony. They signed for their house on the next day and moved in, having Neil's bris in the new house. Bernie was the insurance man running the Bernard R. Shepard agency. Lois and Bernie worked together in the office. Lois got her insurance license, later moving the office to the house. They worked together 24/7. Lois became president, maintaining and serving all of the clients. In describing their relation, Lois summed it up: "We were great together. He was a kind, wonderful man, a great musician, and when he'd have gigs, I would always be there supporting Bernie." She was so proud that he was an expert in disability insurance. Lois told me we had a wonderful marriage. We survived 2 devastating house fires where we lost everything, and the insurance man didn't have the insurance to cover it. We lived 45 years on Penshurst and then moved to Woodhawk. I asked Lois to tell me about the grandchildren. She said this: they were every grandmother's dream. She loved all of her family. How she couldn't have survived without the in-town nieces and nephews watching over her. How the nieces and nephews from both sides and both coasts were always so special to her. She felt so close to you, whether it was California, Chicago, Florida, and everywhere in between. The nieces and nephews summed it up this way: I want to be like Aunt Lois. She was the youngest of 3 sisters, as you heard from Neil, but Lois always ruled the roost. She never held back. Some things never changed. She was a great cook and baker. Her brisket, mandel bread, latkes, chicken cutlets, broccoli casserole were the best. She was a hostess with the mostest. She loved having everyone over, and for Pesach, Passover, she'd grind the grain, making the charoset on the back stairs of the house. She loved to entertain, always hosting gatherings and parties at the house for the family and her ever-expanding circle of friends. At a restaurant, the food was never hot enough. The coffee had to be fresh and hot. You heard that she played cards religiously, Wednesdays and Saturdays. Boating was a big part of their life, going down to Florida, staying on the boat, and then getting their place at Boca Lago. Here in Cleveland, putting the boat out at 55th Street Marina, and then joining the Lakeside Yacht Club and the Catawba Island Club. They loved being out on the water in their 32-foot Marinate or their 42-foot Chris Craft. Lois was always stylish, dressed to the nines with her hair perfect. She was one of Chico's and Nordstrom's finest customers. Her grandchildren meant the world to her. She literally wore you around her neck. She was always there, always included in all of your activities and events, always bragging about you to her friends. You remember how fun their house was, how you'd play in all the rooms and the park behind, how loyal she was, like when Schaefer was playing baseball and he happened to be in the paper. Lois would carry around the cutout article, showing it to everyone, saying, "My grandson's going to the majors." Neil told me that Mom and Dad built this close family, built on a foundation of morality and loyalty, teaching us to always be forgiving, to never judge a book by its cover. She kept the family close, even after Bernie's death, keeping a close relationship with the California and Florida Shepards. Her former daughter-in-law, Lori, remained a loving daughter-in-law, traveling back and forth from California, a cantor with a gifted voice who had planned to be here to sing the memorial prayer for Lois. Unfortunately, she's under the weather and was unable to travel from LA. Lois showed us all how to be a loyal friend. She was always resourceful with an inner strength and resilience. She lived a long life, left us all still wanting more time with her. Lois always remained so strong. She was content and well cared for, with respect and love for the whole family. She was still the matriarch to the end. I could see her sitting on that couch at Montefiore Hospice. I had to wait in line when I would visit her. I'll always love her. shall always have an incredible place in all of our hearts. And when we live, and when we are generous, when we share our love and make new friends, we'll know that it's Lois pushing us to reach out to be better. May her name always bring us blessings. Tehei Zichrono Baruch. And we say, Amen. We'll rise now for the memorial prayer. El Mare Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Hamatzeh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'malot Kiroshim Utorim Kezora Ki Amazirim Et Nishmat Libarachol Bat Noson V'Miriam Shachal Olama B'Gan Eden Te'Menuchato Anna Barachamim Asti Leba Sedek Nevakali Olamim Utzar B'Tzar Chaymed Nishmato Adonai Onachalata V'Tanok B'Shalom Mishkava V'Nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of our beloved Lois, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May she merit the reward for living a life filled with righteousness, generosity, kindness, and love. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen. The interment will follow at Mount Olive Cemetery. The family will then receive friends at Lander Haven Executive Caterers today, following the burial until 9 p.m. Thursday and Friday, so tomorrow and Friday, Shiva will be at Lois's home, 120 Fox Hollow Drive, Suite 406 in Mayfield Heights. Times for tomorrow and Friday are 12 to 4 and 6 to 9. We'll be having evening minion services tonight and tomorrow night. Wednesday night, tonight at Lander Haven at 7. Tomorrow night on Fox Hollow at 7 p.m. also.